Boxing. It is brought to you by Jake Paul and Nikisa Badarian.
We fight hard, fight clean, touch them up.
Jake Paul finally met his match when he found himself face-to-face with Iron Mike Tyson in the ring. What did we all expect? The YouTuber gets in the ring with the baddest man on the planet in Iron Mike Tyson. This was the humbling of a lifetime, as Jake Paul was so petrified that he wouldn't even dare look Mike Tyson in the eyes in the ring. Mike Tyson launched forward with his peekaboo style, bobbing and weaving all of Jake Paul's sloppy punches as Mike got up close and unleashed a barrage of attacks.
Mike on top and bangs him with a left hook right away and falls towards Mike Tyson. And time is called now, 8-2. Good instructions given by the ref in the early going. Mike gets it with the right hand. He was really there with a flush right hand. It's up to 5 and 6. He's not going to make it. Mike Tyson in dramatic fashion knocks out in the early seconds of the first round.
You took it. I knew I hit you with a good shot. You took it. You took it. I respect that.
In what was perhaps the most anticipated boxing match of the year, the spectacle of Jake Paul stepping into the ring with the legendary Mike Tyson quickly turned from a much-hyped media event into a brutal reality check. Jake Paul, the YouTube sensation turned boxer, had made a name for himself by carefully selecting his opponents, mostly older, retired fighters, or those from other combat sports who had no real boxing experience. His latest venture, however, proved to be a bridge too far, as he squared off against a man whose legacy in the sport is unquestionable. Mike Tyson, at 58 years old, may have been long removed from his prime, but as the world witnessed, the ferocity and power that had once made him the baddest man on the planet were still very much intact. The tale of the tape had many pundits and fans alike intrigued. Jake Paul, 27 years old, stood 6'1" and weighed in at 200 pounds, sporting a record of 9 wins, 1 loss, and 6 knockouts. Tyson, in contrast, was 5'10", weighed in at 220 pounds, and had a storied record of 50 wins, 6 losses, and 44 knockouts. On paper, the physical differences seemed to favor Paul, but as any seasoned boxing fan knows, experience, skill, and raw power often outweigh youth and size, something Paul would come to realize in devastating fashion. From the moment the bell rang, it was evident that Tyson had no intention of letting this fight go the distance. The former undisputed heavyweight champion of the world came out aggressively, immediately closing the distance between himself and Paul. This was not the Tyson of recent exhibition matches, where the pace was slow and the punches were pulled. This was a version of Tyson that fans hadn't seen in years, a man with a point to prove and an opponent to dismantle. The aura of intimidation that Tyson carried into the ring was palpable, and for the first time in his professional career, Paul looked unsure of himself. Jake Paul's usual strategy of using his jab to control the pace and distance of the fight was quickly rendered ineffective. Tyson's head movement, which had always been one of his trademarks, was as sharp as ever. He bobbed and weaved his way inside, rendering Paul's reach advantage useless. The speed at which Tyson moved was shocking to those who had expected his age to slow him down. Every step Tyson took was deliberate, every movement calculated to put him in the perfect position to land his devastating power punches. Paul, who had been accustomed to fighting opponents who were either significantly older or outmatched in skill, suddenly found himself in deep waters. His attempts to keep Tyson at bay with his jab were not only ineffective, but left him open to counterattacks that came with frightening speed and power. Tyson, aware of Paul's vulnerabilities, began to target the younger fighter's body, a tactic designed to wear him down and bring his hands down. The body shots were brutal, and it was clear that they were taking their toll on Paul, who visibly winced with each blow. As the first round continued, Tyson's relentless pressure forced Paul into uncomfortable positions. The younger fighter's footwork, which had never been particularly polished, became sloppy as he tried to evade the oncoming storm. Paul's attempts to clinch and slow down the pace of the fight were quickly thwarted by Tyson, who used his superior strength and experience to break free and continue his assault. The crowd, sensing that a knockout was imminent, began to roar in anticipation. The knockout itself was a thing of brutal beauty, a perfect example of Tyson's ability to set up his opponents for the kill. After landing several body shots that visibly hurt Paul, Tyson saw the opening he had been waiting for. Paul, desperate to create some distance, threw a wild right hand that Tyson easily avoided. In an instant, Tyson shifted his weight and delivered a right hand of his own, a punch so fast and so powerful that Paul never saw it coming. The punch connected flush with Paul's jaw, and the younger fighter's body went limp before he even hit the canvas. The sound of the punch echoed through the arena, and the impact was so severe that it was immediately clear the fight was over. Paul lay motionless on the canvas, unconscious and utterly defeated. The referee didn't bother with a count. He waved off the fight as the medical team rushed in to attend to Paul. The scene was a stark contrast to the bravado and confidence Paul had displayed in the lead-up to the fight. In just one round, Mike Tyson had turned the so-called problem child into just another name on his long list of knockout victims. For Tyson, this victory was more than just another win. It was a statement. At 58 years old, many had questioned whether he still had the ability to compete at a high level. Those doubts were erased in less than 2 minutes. Tyson's performance was a masterclass in boxing fundamentals: footwork, head movement, body shots, and devastating power. He had shown that despite his age, he was still capable of delivering the kind of knockout that had defined his career. More importantly, he had exposed Jake Paul as a fighter who, despite his record, was not ready to step into the ring with a true legend of the sport. The aftermath of the fight was as telling as the bout itself. Jake Paul, who had built a reputation on his loudmouth antics and ability to handpick his opponents, was left to face the harsh reality that boxing is not a game to be taken lightly. His previous victories against opponents who were either retired or not true boxers had given him a false sense of security. In Tyson, Paul encountered a different kind of opponent, one who was not there to play along with the spectacle but to defend the honor of a sport he loves. Paul's defeat at the hands of Tyson was a humbling experience, one that will likely have a lasting impact on his career. For all his talk, for all his bravado, Paul was reminded in the most brutal way possible that there are levels to this sport, and he had just stepped into a level he was not prepared for. The knockout was not just a loss on his record, it was a public undressing, a moment where the world saw the difference between a YouTube personality playing at being a boxer and a true fighter who had spent decades honing his craft. Tyson's victory was celebrated by boxing purists who saw the fight as a vindication of the sport's values. For too long, they had watched as Jake Paul made a mockery of boxing, using his fame to cherry-pick opponents and rack up wins that many felt were undeserved. In one round, Tyson had restored order, showing that no matter how many followers you have or how much trash you talk, the ring is a place where only the truly skilled survive. The fight also sparked a broader conversation about the role of social media influencers in combat sports. Paul's rise in boxing was largely fueled by his massive online following, which translated into lucrative pay-per-view events and high-profile fights. But Tyson's knockout of Paul served as a reminder that popularity does not equate to skill. The ring is a place where real fighters, those who have dedicated their lives to the sport, expose pretenders. And in this fight, Paul was exposed in the most emphatic way possible. As Tyson stood victorious in the ring, it was clear that this fight was about more than just two men. It was about the very essence of boxing. For Tyson, the victory was a return to form, a chance to remind the world of who he is and what he stands for. For Paul, it was a harsh lesson in humility, one that he would need to learn if he hoped to continue in the sport. The knockout was a moment that will be replayed for years to come, not just because of its brutality, but because of what it represented, the triumph of true skill and experience over hype and spectacle. In the days following the fight, the boxing world was abuzz with discussion about what comes next for both men. For Tyson, the victory opened the door to new opportunities. There was talk of more fights, perhaps against other high-profile opponents who had underestimated his abilities. Tyson, always the consummate professional, remained humble in victory, thanking his fans and acknowledging that while he was older, his love for the sport had not diminished. For Jake Paul, the future was far less certain. His confidence, which had been his greatest asset, was shattered. The knockout had exposed the limits of his abilities and left him with a choice: either continue down the path of spectacle, fighting opponents he could easily defeat, or take the sport seriously and work to improve his skills. Paul's fans, who had supported him through thick and thin, now had to reckon with the reality that their hero was not invincible, that he had been humbled by a man many had written off as too old to compete. The fight also had a significant impact on the broader landscape of boxing. It served as a reminder that the sport is not just about money and fame, but about respect and skill. Tyson's victory was a wake-up call to the new generation of fighters who may have been seduced by the lure of easy money and social media stardom. The ring is a place where true fighters are forged, and there are no shortcuts to greatness. Tyson's performance was a reminder that, no matter how much the sport has changed, the fundamentals remain the same. As the dust settled on this historic bout, it was clear that the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson would be remembered for years to come. It was a clash of eras, a battle between a man who had dedicated his life to boxing and one who had used it as a stepping stone to greater fame. In the end, the result was inevitable. Tyson's knockout of Paul was not just a victory for the old guard, it was a victory for boxing itself. The knockout itself became an instant classic, a moment that will be replayed and analyzed by boxing fans for generations. Tyson's ability to deliver such a devastating punch at his age was a testament to his enduring power and skill. For those who had doubted him, who had written him off as a relic of the past, the knockout was a powerful reminder that true greatness never fades. Tyson's legacy, already secure, was further solidified by this victory, adding another chapter to the story of one of the most iconic fighters in boxing history. Paul's defeat also raised questions about the future of influencer boxing. While the crossover between social media stars and combat sports had generated significant interest and revenue, Tyson's victory highlighted the gap between entertainment and real competition. The fight served as a reality check, not just for Paul, but for all those who believed that boxing could be reduced to a sideshow. The ring is a place where the truth comes out, and in this case, the truth was that Paul was not ready to face a real fighter. For Tyson, the fight was a triumphant return to the spotlight, but it was also a reminder of the toll that boxing can take on a fighter's body and mind. Tyson has been open about his struggles with mental health and the challenges of life after boxing. This victory, while sweet, also served as a reminder of the sacrifices he has made for the sport he loves. It was a bittersweet moment for a man who has given so much to boxing, but who has also paid a heavy price for his success. The impact of this fight extended beyond the ring. It sparked a broader conversation about the ethics of matching older fighters against younger opponents, especially when those older fighters are legends of the sport. While Tyson's victory was a clear demonstration of his enduring abilities, it also raised concerns about the potential dangers of such matchups. The boxing community was divided, with some praising Tyson's performance and others questioning the wisdom of allowing a 58-year-old man to step into the ring with a much younger opponent. As the debate continued, one thing was clear: this fight would not be forgotten. It was a moment that transcended the sport, capturing the imagination of fans and critics alike. Tyson's victory was a reminder of what makes boxing so special: the unpredictability, the drama, the raw emotion of two fighters giving everything they have in the ring. And while Paul's defeat was a humbling experience, it was also a reminder that in boxing, as in life, there are no shortcuts to success. The legacy of this fight will be felt for years to come. For Tyson, it was a triumphant return to the ring, a chance to remind the world of his greatness. For Paul, it was a harsh lesson in the realities of the sport he had chosen to enter. And for the boxing world, it was a moment of reflection, a chance to reconsider the direction of the sport in an era where social media and entertainment often overshadow the true essence of competition. In the end, the fight between Jake Paul and Mike Tyson was about more than just two men stepping into the ring. It was about the clash of old and new, the battle between a legend of the sport and a man who had used it as a stepping stone to fame. The knockout was the culmination of that clash, a moment that will be remembered not just for its brutality, but for what it represented: the triumph of skill, experience, and respect over hype and spectacle. Tyson's victory was a reminder that no matter how much the world changes, some things remain the same. In boxing, as in life, true greatness is earned, not given. And on that night, in that ring, Mike Tyson showed the world that he is, and always will be, one of the greatest fighters to ever step between the ropes. The fight may have lasted only one round, but its impact will be felt for a lifetime.